Welcome to the Mindful Healers podcast. Today's episode is a special guest episode with Karen called Learn to See and Know Magic. A reminder that nothing we share today will be medical advice. And we are going to have a conversation about lessons from a successful transformative coaching journey. Our intention today is to share the magic. We hope you'll discover that coaching is doable, fun, and life-changing. And the takeaways are that it takes time, but over time, coaching truly becomes a part of you. It seeps into every nook and cranny, and that turns into amazing. So I wanted to start sharing a card that Karen sent me about a year ago. A snippet of it to set off our conversation with the exact right tone. And I think it's a beautiful introduction to who Karen is. And so in the card, she said, I now navigate my days from a more lighthearted, simple, and spacious spot. I see and know magic, and the adventure continues. So first off, I want to tell you, I need your permission. I'm going to use that in my book I'm writing, by the way. It's actually, it's already in there. So hopefully it's okay with you. But yes. To me, it's just this beautiful way of thinking about coaching and transformation and gets us out of like life as a self-improvement project. And it's really about opening yourself up to magic and adventure. And you sent me that card a year ago, and you've continued to coach for another year and continued to really live into this idea of magic and adventure. And so I'm hoping we can learn from you and learn from your experience of coaching, really over 2 years of coaching. I think it's been a 2-year journey so far. The first year, all one-on-one, and the second year, mostly groups. And so seeing how it can evolve and how you can integrate it and become really, as you said, I think a new person or a new life, like unfolding into a new life. And so my introduction of Karen is that she is an anesthesiologist who lives in New Mexico and loves Utah slot canyons. And we hope to talk a little bit about slot canyons and lessons from slot canyons and lessons from adventure and magic. And as I think about those beautiful slot canyons, they're really the perfect visual of magic and adventure and how one might want to approach life. So with that, Karen, why don't you introduce whatever you want to share about yourself and a little bit about what you want to share today in the podcast.
Okay. First, thank you very much. I'm excited to be here and excited to share bits of my life that have turned me around. I have one thing I'd like to read that actually is a little paraphrased off of a blog that you sent out a while ago. And it said, imagine if you could feel like life is a journey to be experienced and enjoyed and lived, rather than as a series of challenges, problems to solve, self-improvement projects to undertake, and things to do. And I feel like I no longer have to imagine that. I get to live that. And understand that I can live and enjoy and experience and not have to solve and fix and control. And it's been incredible. It's turned my life, as I say, upside down, inside out, and unfolded things. So that's, and yeah, I would love to share, to be able to express what it's meant for me to be able to change my life. And yeah, it's produced a lot of simplicity in my life, a lot of spaciousness, and a whole lot more fun.
And those were your words for last year. And so I've talked a lot recently about words for 2023 because it's that time of year. And this will unveil to the world in the beginning of 2023 at some point. And so maybe just even sharing how you got to choosing those words. I want to go back all the way into how you found coaching and why you decided to do it. But I think I love this simple, spacious, and fun was your intention for 2022. And you want to share a little bit about how they unfolded and why choosing words is so magical, why you love it?
I do love it. And it's had a huge impact on me throughout the last year with these 3 words that I picked. I don't really recall what was the point or where I chose each of those, other than the fact that I don't know, they pop into my head. A word does. I play with it for a while, toss it around in my brain for a while, look at it from a whole bunch of different angles. And I actually had a list of probably 30 words last year. And of those 30 words, these were the 3 that just were me and were what I wanted for the coming year. And they just sort of cemented themselves early on.
And my sense is that it was the coaching process that helped you be able to see what was you and know what was you.
Totally.
And choose them with authenticity and move forward in that sort of centered, grounded, like you knew these words are me and this is what I want for the next year. And the year prior, I think you were 1 year into coaching when you picked those words. That wouldn't have felt as accessible.
Right. Yeah. Yes, it was only after a year of work and just realizing a whole lot of truths that I never knew before, that these things were able to take place in my life.
All right, that's the perfect question. So share, what are some of these truths that you learned in the first year of coaching that changed everything for you?
So I have a really long list of things that changed and things that I've learned over the year. And I tried to sort of pull it together so it wasn't a huge long list. But some of the things that were biggest for me was learning that this journey of life really is all about me. I came out of a lifetime of wanting to control, wanting to fix others, because I believed at that point that their behaviors and their actions were what controlled my feelings. I think that had been sort of reiterated through life and through training, medical school training, and to really realize that it really is all about me and I get to choose my feelings was an eye-opener. Another big one was to quit resisting. That's probably been the biggest thing for me, and to quit resisting. It's just things are, and again, trying to fix or control uses up a huge amount of energy, and I didn't want to be putting my energy there any longer. And so I've learned to quit resisting things that are, and to accept and allow and move forward. And it's been huge.
Yeah. So what helps you quit resisting? Because I work with so many people who we resist, right? It's the natural human tendency, I think. And I think many of these things, as you mentioned, even about like the idea of our feelings coming from things other people do, we were taught this, and we were taught to resist in many ways. And so undoing that resistance takes a while. But what were the things that help you, that really made that stick for you? Because my sense for you now is that all of this has stuck and is like actually you now. You're not putting effort into thinking these ways, maybe a quick occasional reminder, but that it's not work anymore. It's just become you.
Right. Boy, the things that made me, I think, was just coming to an understanding with coaching with you of how much energy I was expending resisting things. And I truly had no control over them. And so I'm wasting all this energy, and it's creating some angst in my life, and just understanding that I don't want to live like that anymore. And so I could look at things and look and say, the feeling that I'm feeling is because I'm resisting. And if I quit resisting, those feelings are gone, and I can have whatever, I'll use the word positive, but I don't really mean positive, but just uplifting feelings instead. It was like I was this tangled web, and I think of metal, like a coil that, or a slinky, if anybody knows what those are anymore.
Yeah.
It's just tangled, and it's tight, and it takes a lot of energy to stay like that. And I feel like as I learned these things and these truths and put them into action in my life, I unraveled. And so now I have, instead of this tight, coiled, cold metal, I have these beautiful ribbons inside of me that just flow and feel. They take no energy to do.
Reminds me of physics and
Mhm.
like the resistance in the metal. And so when you use the word metal, I was thinking like you took the resistance out of the metal and now the energy just moves freely and efficiently.
Yep. Yes.
How
It's a
beautiful.
beautiful place to be.
So tell me, because I don't even remember the story, how you found me 2 years ago when we started coaching.
You don't remember the story, and I'm not sure I totally do, but I'd done some therapy with other folks, cognitive therapy, because I knew there was something I wanted different in my life. And so I was periodically looking at different avenues, energy work, cognitive therapy, things like that. And I'd be on the internet looking at blogs, and I think I ran across your blog, and I read it for a while. And then at some point, there's a thing of doing a consult with you, a free consult, which was very appealing. And I called you and we talked. And when I hung up, it was like, oh, I love her. I love this. And I started in with you. Yeah.
And so what was it, if you remember, what were you trying to fix? I know you said you just wanted things to be better.
I think what I initially started was I wanted to find out how to fix and control people, because I knew there must be a way. And so I think when I started, it was like, I must just be doing it wrong. And I didn't really label it fix and control at
Right.
that
Those
point.
those are coaching words.
Yes. But I have totally come to understand that. And I think that's what I was looking for, was a way for somebody to validate the way I was living my life and make it feel more comfortable to me.
Yeah.
And that's when I say things got turned upside down, inside out, and unfolded, because that is not at all what happened. I didn't get validated in the way.
So you reached out to feel validated and comfortable with who you were and the way you were, and to fix, manage, and control it. But what actually happened?
Yeah, the opposite. And I learned so much about myself, and that so much of how I'd been taught and trained all my life, and the things that I was perpetuating, were really not truths. And yeah, I realize now there's a whole part of life, and not even a part, the whole of life, that can be magical. And I kind of termed the other stuff muck. And I waded around in the muck for years and years and years, but I was pretty sure there was a way to wade in the muck and make it easier. And what I've discovered is the point is to get out of the muck and into the magic. And that's where I've gotten through coaching.
That is so beautiful. Get out of the muck and into the magic.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit more about things that helped you get out of the muck and into the magic. I know we were back there before, like letting go of resistance and choosing how you want to feel. What other tools helped you get out of the muck and into the magic?
So some other things that have been really beneficial for getting out of the muck and staying in the magic, which I want to say is doable for everybody and available to everybody. It is not anything special. I mean, it is special, but I'm not special. It's available to everybody. So one of the other things that's really helped me is setting intentions, which is something I learned from you. I've never been somebody who set goals, really. It was always a harsh word to me. And I've come to understand that setting an intention is creating a path to follow, and a goal is more like a destination. And I love that I have a path to follow, and you do it one step at a time, and it's easy and it's comfortable. And sure, there's ragged things along the way, but I don't know, it's been beautiful. So setting intentions rather than goals has been and I continue to do that, sometimes on a daily basis, sometimes on a circumstance basis. And then I will pick new words for the year and have those be my yearly intentions.
I think this, what you just mentioned is really powerful for people who are listening. Is we've done a lot of conversations about words for the year, and you talked about your words for last year. And I hope we can talk a little bit about words for this year, because I think it's one of our shared loves is word for the year. Mm-hmm. But you just mentioned this idea of choosing intentions on a daily basis and or for a circumstance. So for a vacation or a family event, or I often see it super helpful for people with difficult meetings, for example, or maybe for a mammogram or for some particular thing that you have to go through. And that this idea of setting an intention in a micro way can be super, super helpful. And I think for you, for a while, you were setting daily intentions. I will say that in the process of your coaching, you changed your job. You changed your whole life around too. So we talk about coaching and changing our thoughts about things, but once you get into it and you change your thoughts about things, it becomes very clear what things you want to change. And so for you also, coaching helps you make some big changes, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about that. But that as you made those changes, I recall you setting daily intentions as you were going through the big transition part of it. Do you want to share a little bit about how it helped you do some of these things that I think you had wanted to do and were ready to do, but weren't quite sure how to do?
Yes, this is true. So when I first started coaching with you, I had a job which I really love, but things were sort of falling apart, in even more so in the system, medical system, and in the group that I was working with. And I had a lot of things that I talked to you about that happened on my job on a daily basis, and understood after coaching with you for a while that I had control of a lot of the feelings that I had surrounding the circumstances. And I just forgot what the question is.
We were talking about why you changed the circumstance. And I think what's coming to mind, even as you're telling the story, so we often talk about coaching as changing your thoughts and feelings about things, but it's never meant to keep you doing something that maybe you ultimately don't want to do. It's really meant to help you listen and know what you want to do. And so one of the things that I brought up in a recent podcast is this idea of it's actually okay to change the circumstances. So you can live a life where you're doing less thought work and less mind management all the time. And so I don't know if that's what got you to make a change. What I recall, which was so interesting, is that you had been thinking about this and it had come up in sort of your coaching sessions. And then all of a sudden you came back and said, I have decided I think it was even done. Yeah. And so what allowed you to sort of make that decision? And you've lived into it every day since.
I think for me, one of the things as I was going along in my job, and it's sort of wondering if it was time to step out, to quit, and having a lot of other people's sort of input into my life. It's like, well, you're too young to retire, which I wasn't, because I don't know what that means, but you're too young to retire. You should keep working as long as you can work. And just that whole push of what we get taught as physicians, and of realizing that that was not, again, sort of like unraveling the metal in me. That wasn't how I wanted to keep living. And as I chose my words, I came to understand that working was not helping me to live with the intentions that I had set for the year. And I worked through a lot of stuff about my job, and I didn't quit until I'd worked through those things. And then it was time to say, I'm done, and move on.
I think one of the other things that comes to mind here is, and this was part of my process, is you can love something and leave it. Because you didn't dislike medicine. You didn't you loved, you in fact came to me when we first started coaching, more about life circumstances
Mhm.
and saying, I actually love my job. I love patients. I love what I do. And yet, interestingly, that's what you ended up changing and not the rest of your life when you started
Yes.
to be more authentic towards yourself. But for both of us, I think we had something we loved and were good at and
Mhm.
made a difference at, and we chose to live differently, and that it can be done with complete integrity and peace. And I think also for you, maybe a little bit of getting out of the scarcity mentality, because a lot of being stuck was from that old scarcity space.
Yep. That's another huge thing that I learned during coaching was how much of my thought process was based on scarcity of money, of time, of pretty much everything in my life, food. And none of those things were scarce. I had an abundance of all those things, but my thinking was based on scarcity.
Okay.
And so I think that was a lot of what drove me to understand that yes, I have an abundance and I can be done with work, time wise, money wise, energy wise.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How did getting out of that scarcity mindset help you both, thinking with food and your relationships? And maybe also with just fun, honestly. That's the other thing
Oh,
that comes to mind. All three of those seem very much impacted by that switch in your mind around scarcity and abundance.
right. Yes. This has been one fun thing. I'm not really struggled with my weight, but during residency, I gained a lot of weight. And so food and weight were always these issues. I'm like obsessed with when am I going to get a chance to eat? And then, oh, there's nothing. Well, I never even really thought, oh, there's nothing good or healthy to eat. I just ate whatever was available, which oftentimes wasn't very healthy, and ate an abundance of it because I didn't know when I get to eat again. And now I'm in a whole different place. I don't even really think about. I eat when I'm hungry and I eat well. And that's been such another thing that was so tangled in my brain and is now untangled and has been incredible. Yeah. Lots of things in my relationships have changed because when you're fixing and controlling other people, you're judging them. And uh, even as I started working with you, I'd still be like, yeah, but, and go on with whatever they needed to still do to change, to make me more comfortable. That was a huge thing too, is understanding that I wanted other people to change because what they were doing made me uncomfortable. And I wanted to be comfortable. And getting that that's not how the system works. That's not how it goes. So that's changed a lot in my relationships with friends, with my spouse, with my stepson. Has been, yeah, in a different place now because I don't fix and control and judge.
It's I'm thinking it actually has brought magic to those relationships.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Maybe not magic to your relationship with food, since magic is the theme of this podcast, but maybe ease with your
Yes.
relationship with food, or
Yes.
simple, as you mentioned, a simple and spacious
It
relationship.
really is still magic with the food because I was wandering around in the muck and the mire and slogged down with
Mhm.
the weight of, and not physical weight, but just the weight of the whole eating stuff, food things, calories, energy. And no, I've stepped up above that now and I've gotten out of the muck of it.
Yeah. So what's coming up is that what coaching did for you, you've mentioned it a few times, is untangle your brain.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that you came maybe to untangle it about a frustration with one thing, or even my sense is you came just knowing it was tangled and it didn't feel good to have a tangled brain.
Yes. Yes.
And yet, as you've untangled it, it's untangled about all of these different things. And that each one thing that you untangled it about, whether it was judgment or fixing or resisting, opened up magic in all these very even unexpected ways.
Yes, definitely. And I guess I wouldn't even have said I didn't recognize it when I first started coaching that it was tangled. I knew it was tight, but somehow tight was okay because tight was control. And, I know what I'm doing and I know how to do this. And tight is probably, I knew that, but I didn't realize the tension of the tangle that I had, and didn't even really know it was tangled. And oh my gosh, it's just, yeah, it's incredible not to have that going on, and the energy expenditure that I didn't even really realize until we talked about it. And it's like,
And so what you felt when you came to coaching was tight, tense, and maybe exhausted.
Yes.
Or depleted might be the other word that kind of comes to mind. Not light, since I know that's one of your newer words, and it was complicated. It was not simple. And tight is really the opposite of spacious. What do you think the opposite of fun was? Because that was where you got after 1 year, because that's really what you came with, the opposite of fun, spacious, and simple.
And again, I would use a control again, because a lot of times when you have fun, you're sort of out of control, which is incredibly fun. And the other word I would use would be serious. Like somebody would be laughing at something, and I think that's just not, I don't know, it was just so, it just felt loose, and I needed things tight. And yeah.
And that's so a little bit of judgment popping back.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So you went from serious, feeling, needing to control, tight and tense, to, as you said, simple, spacious, fun.
Yes. I've had so much more fun in the last year than I think I have since I was a little kid. And it's been fun.
What do you attribute that to?
Again, just an understanding of where I was locked in and had been fed all these untruths, and understanding and implementing them in my life. And yeah, coming to the point of life is a whole lot more fun than I ever thought it was. It was okay before, but it's fun.
That's beautiful.
And it can't, not everything's not fun every day, but I have a whole lot more fun in my life. Just silly laughter, silly things, lighthearted. Yeah, than I ever did for the past few decades.
That's beautiful. And my sense is that most of that came through coaching.
Oh, I would say 99.9% of it. Yeah. And the other 0.1, I'm not sure where it came from, but
yeah. Yes. Well, we never give 100%. So I would love to hear a little bit about the journey, because you've done both one-on-one and group coaching. You've done one-on-one on its own, one-on-one and group together, and then just group at this point. And the other thing I just want to say is that you are continuing with it, even though you're already in this magic spot, knowing that it's sort of, I often think of ongoing coaching, and I continue to get coached. It's like preventive care for a magical, delightful life. And it sort of keeps you tuned up. Maybe it's brushing your teeth, keeping the plaque out of your teeth, whatever. That's maybe not a lovely way to say it, but it's more fun than brushing your teeth. But sort of your thoughts on those, and why different things are helpful at different times, or the evolution of a journey.
Yeah. So when I first started with you and we did weekly one-on-one meetings, was crucial for me for just the input I got from you, and also being able to share from my viewpoint, and then getting retaught by you, basically. So just having that on a weekly basis was crucial for my development and changes and things like that. Once I sort of started to understand and get into things clicking in my brain of like, oh, that's what I'm doing. Oh, I'm doing that. Oh, then we could space out. I could have a little more time on my own. It's like with a little kid who's learning to walk. You're right there with them, at the beginning. Your hands are right close to him in case he teeters a little bit. And then as they gain confidence and skill, then you back off a little bit, and pretty soon they're out running around and you don't even know where they are. So, and it was similar to that. For me right now, I have to say I miss the one-on-one, but it's just because I've grown to love you and your thought process and things like that. And it's just like sharing things with a good friend. The group coaching is fabulous. Just being with a group of women who are, a lot of them basically in the same place that I was and am now, and just being included in the journey that they're on and sharing that. And I would think like the ongoingness of it is nourishing. I have discovered what I need physically, mentally, emotionally, my heart, my soul, to be in this magical place. And so continuing with the group coaching at this point is what nourishes that and keeps it strong.
That's beautiful. And let's, for fun, move to your words for 2023, because you just sort of led right into them. So your intentions, your action here of continuing, honestly, to do another round of group coaching, even 2 years in. And I would offer, not because you need it. And one of the things that I often teach in coaching is, right, we don't do things because we need them. We do it because we want to.
Yes.
And how much more empowering, or we choose to, or we get to, and you're really gifting it to yourself as a way to nourish yourself.
Yes.
And it ties right into what you mentioned early on about setting intentions. So it is an action that's completely aligned with your intentions for the year.
Yes.
So do you want to share your words for next year?
I will. The one
I know
that
they're still in evolution, of course.
They are.
There's plenty of time to adapt. And I think for someone like you, and for me, where these words are so powerful, we soften into them and explore them. And so with the full caveat, as you share these, that they might change. And I remember last year that simple, spacious, and fun were not the initial words that you came up with in November and December. We worked on them. And I'm very appreciative and grateful of all the time and attention that went into it, because they really did like become your entire year. And so I think that a huge piece of that came from the intentional conversations and work to come up with words that were incredibly aligned with where you were in that moment. And that those words are fairly complete for you. I think you really lived into every nook and cranny of them. Yep. And now you're ready for something new.
It's true. I spent a lot of time picking my words last year. And as you said, they were not my initial ones, but the ones I ended up with after doing a lot of talking with you, and also talking to anybody basically who'd listened to me talk about them, because they were so incredible, are part of what's kept me in the magic and kept the intentions of living those words on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I want to interject here, because I think many people would say, oh, choose magic as your word, because that's what you want. And it's very aspirational. And it's like, I'm just going to have a year of magic. And that's where I think a lot of other ways of approaching it that's kind of different than the coaching that I do is choosing magic doesn't get you to magic. Right. You chose the words that created magic and allowed you to see and experience magic and live in magic. Yep. And so it's just interesting, because we gave that sort of the title of the podcast, but really it was your words that got you to magic. Yes. And so I don't know that we even know where your words will get you this year. Right. But they are the words that are about, as you mentioned in the very beginning, the journey. And they're the words to guide your journey for this year.
Yep. So the one I'm pretty set on is savor. And just as I have sort of researched and studied it a little bit, encompasses so much of what I want in my life for this year, is to be able to savor in a 360 degree. I want to savor myself. I want to savor others. I want to savor my relationships. I want to savor nature, everything that surrounds me. I want to take, and this includes for me taking the time. Savoring isn't something you do quickly. It's something that you spend time on, thought on, sit with. And that's what I want to do with my life. is
this word savor. I don't know if you remember, but a year or so ago, I wrote a blog post, and I know you read everyone, so you probably remember it, but to stop saving the world and start savoring the world. And that's kind of what comes to mind here. The other thing, last week's yoga class, it'll be a month or so ago by the time this podcast comes out, but was actually on savoring. And I brought up this idea of baking, not microwaving, and like making things more savory, and allowing yourself to savor. And so savor to me is just this really kind of a full circle word. And to savor the magic is the other thing that comes up as you mentioned that, like that you've now created, and to savor the progress and the work and who you are now too. It's really magical.
Yeah. One of the reason this even popped into my head was, I don't remember when we even talked about this, but you were telling me a story about someone in your life and who had done some things that the rest of the family was kind of like, I don't know if that's the best choice, but she chose to do those things and savored her life. And the way she did that was by living things that were true to her. And she met resistance.
I'm going to interject here. That was my mother-in-law. And it's her, she has passed away, but it's her birthday today that we're recording this. So we should savor in honor of her. And she every year savored her birthday. And like, we cannot have December 20th without savoring. We all savor it. We all remember it. We all think of her. And really, it was her desire. She savored the world. She savored all of the moments. And she loved food. And for those of you who come to Sagrada, she is the mother-in-law that taught my husband to cook that food. And so it's really kind of full circle around the savoring.
That's that. I just feel
tingles, right?
Yes. Yeah. So that was really even where I came up with the word initially. Was after you shared
that is so beautiful. And she would love to know that the spirit is carrying on.
Yes. Amen. So that's a almost for sure word. My other pretty close to, I think, is going to be a word, nourish, because I would like to continue to nourish. As I mentioned, that's why I keep on with the group coaching, and nourish every facet of my life. Nourish myself physically, nourish myself spiritually, emotionally, psychologically. And if you nourishment also takes time. You don't nourish yourself in a drive-through quick lane of whatever. It's
in a microwave.
In a microwave. Yes. You spend some time and you sit with, and
I love that word, nourish. And I'm going to put a plug in. I call the Sagrada Retreat Nourish and Transform. And I do believe that the nourish piece that you mentioned, and this is also funny because, as I mentioned, I'm writing a book and I want to keep using this word nourish. And the coach that I'm working with who helps people write books, she keeps saying, well, nourish, that just means food. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. It means exactly what you said, like the physical, spiritual, psychological, and doing it leisurely. And yet each time I have to like explain what I mean with that word nourish. And so it's a different way of nourishing. It's like 360 nourishing. And when we step out of nourishing with just food, now I think food is an important part of it. But as you mentioned, right, food can be this way of nourishing yourself that doesn't have to have all this drama. It can be easy. Natural.
And I think that's a big thing I've come to understand is how connected all this stuff is. It's like nourishing isn't just about your body and food. It's about everything, and everything's about everything.
Yes.
It's all connected. You can't piece off.
Yeah. Everything is about everything. That's a beautiful life quote. And isn't that the truth? And coaching is about everything.
Yes.
And feeling better is about everything.
Yes. Yeah.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Tell us your last word, because it's also really beautiful.
So my third word that is, I haven't spent a whole lot of time with this yet, but I feel pretty good about it, is the word human. And it's like, I'm human. I want to be more human. I want to be authentically human. And we have so many ideas about what what being human means. And I think, again, a lot of those are things that aren't truths, really. Being human is, walking, breathing, but it's being present. It's being mindful. It's being me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you're a human being. You're a human being who it's being all of these things with intention.
Yeah.
That human word resonates so much with this idea too, that humans have human hearts and human minds, and humans actually need coaching. Being human is not easy,
Right.
and being human can be amazing. And
Yes.
so acknowledging that we're human, humans aren't perfect, it just allows you to kind of soften into being you.
Yep. Yeah. I think I spent a lot of, when I talk about controlling, fixing, fairly robotic and not paying attention to feelings, and because my brain knew what to do and my brain knew where to go. And that, yeah, it felt, when I look back, fairly robotic. And now it's like, no, I want all of me, which is all of human being.
That's such a beautiful thing. So it's fully out of any of the robot trained. It's really into just being in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
As a human being, and humans are mammals, by the way, and animals. And so there is a piece of that too, that you need the nature and the sort of nourishing and nurturing your own humanness.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How magical. We're back to magic.
Yes.
So tell me any final words or things that you want to share about your coaching journey, or anything about your life's journey with magic that we didn't touch upon.
I mean, I could go on for hours and hours and hours about it, but I think for me, one of the big things that I would like to be able to share is that this is a doable thing for anybody. It doesn't matter where you are in your life, or how mean you're being to yourself, or unkind, or not compassionate. You have the ability to turn yourself inside out, upside down, and unravel. No matter how tight any of that is, it's available. And there is nothing more beautiful than taking advantage of that availability.
I have one final question, actually, because you mentioned at the beginning that you had all of this scarcity mindset. And I think for many people, they have scarcity of time, money, energy, and also the sort of negativity bias that it works for someone else, but it won't work for me, which is what you just sort of brought up. And so how did you get past that to jump in and do all this work in the first place?
Boy, how did I get past that? I guess I would say I saw something that I liked, and I really had to just quit thinking about it and just jump. And I figured if I jumped, I wasn't jumping into a place where concrete would harden around my feet and I'd be stuck there. If I jumped and it wasn't good, I could walk out again. Yeah.
So you just took a risk. You didn't know. It was a little bit uncertain, but you had this belief that there was better was possible.
Yes. Yes.
And I think you also mentioned, of course, that once we met, we had that connection, which I think is, it's actually why I do those sessions, because I do think that when it's this idea of coaching feels a little bit foreign, or it's like, it might not work for me. And I think when you meet in person and you engage and you realize this is really human work, and there are people that do understand you, and there are ways forward, and that gives you that belief enough to believe in yourself. I actually was thinking about this morning, and I think coaching is also working with someone who believes in you more than you believe in yourself. And that you borrow their belief for a little bit till you start to believe in yourself and see yourself and untangle the ball of wire.
Yeah. And to have somebody who understands that is where you're at, and that's what you need, is the unraveling. And it's a beautiful thing. Unraveling kind of sounds a little scary, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's
It was
beautiful.
wonderful, right?
Yeah, it was incredible. Yeah.
I love watching people unravel and helping
Mhm.
them unravel.
Mhm.
And if you think about like a tight ball of yarn, when you unravel it, and you can then turn it into, I'm not a knitter, but my mother-in-law was, turn it into the most beautiful blanket, or
Yes.
turn it into this amazing thing. I
Yeah.
actually shared in my transition group recently the anatomy of a transition. And there's actually this picture of a tight ball of yarn as like the whole first 3 phases, and then the string comes out and like dips and goes up, and it's sort of why you need coaching through the whole transition. And in the end, the yarn is going up the graph like the stock market to the skies, not in this moment, but as it was before. And so I think it's this whole vision that you've given of this unraveling of a transition, and a way that you can start this way and end up feeling so differently is really magical.
Yes.
So I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast and being brave and courageous, and mostly for sharing your story, because I often feel like when we share stories, other people can see themselves, and it gives them the hope and inspiration that they can also feel better and see and know magic and let the adventure continue.
Yes.
And so I am so excited to see what's next on your magical adventure, and also honored to still get to be a part of it.
Yes. Yeah, it has been magical and fun. It's incredible.
Yeah. So I think both Karen and I encourage you to jump in, even if it feels anxiety provoking, and just see what can happen. See what magic can unfold, turn upside down, and then unfold and unravel.
Yeah.
And so you can find out more. We'll put links in the show notes for the different groups if you want to try group coaching or one-on-one. And if you stay on after the singing bowl, there will be a magical, mindful moment for all of you to enjoy. Thanks so much for listening. And if you enjoy the podcast, share it with others. And reach out anytime, because we'd love to connect. And that is where the magic unfolds, in the connection, as you mentioned.